If you go way back on my channel, what was it, 5 years ago? I did, one of my first videos was like a show and tell video of my Exotica collection. And I showed off the Exotica collection, and it was pretty amazing, though a little primitive in my presentation style. I'm going to leave a link to it because it is kind of fun to see all these covers of the different Exotica stuff that I have. Exotica and space age pop, things like that. I have been interested in Exotica for my whole life. I became fascinated with these albums when I was young. People in my neighborhood, their parents all had these kind of records in their collection. I mentioned in an earlier video I did on Martin Denny that in suburbia, where I grew up, people had these bars built into their basement of their homes. They were like tiki bars sometimes. Sometimes they were just regular bars, but no matter. That's where the hi-fi was, and that's where records like this got played, at parties that our parents went to. That's how I became fascinated with this. Another wave came over me when I started collecting records and haunting thrift shops and seeing the records, of course. And the publication of a book, or a series of 2 books, called Incredibly Strange Music, also piqued my interest in this and actually kind of set off a second wave of interest in Exotica. There are CD series from the 90s that focus on this music too. Well, today we're going to talk about a comparison between my original pressing of Quiet Village, which is a first pressing in stereo. I want to show it to you because there's something about how Jackpot does these that I think is very impressive. You see how that label looked originally? Very, very distinctive. Hold that thought because I'm going to show you how Jackpot does it too, and they're very, very close. This is the Jackpot reissue here in my hand. I mean, it looks better than the original. It does. I don't know how that's possible, but maybe with, a little bit of touch up here and there, but it looks really good. This is a little lighter, kind of washed out in a way. She looks more beautiful, and that's Sandy Warner. Sandy Warner is known as the Exotica girl, and she's on all the covers. So I think that was a really cool choice that the producers of the Martin Denny records chose one model to represent the whole series. And that's one of the reasons why we're still attracted to these records, is to see the pose that Sandy Warner is doing. Oh man, I would have loved to have met Sandy Warner just to thank her for gracing these covers. So Quiet Village actually came later than Primitiva. And this is the only Jackpot reissue I have that's on black vinyl. I think there was a colored vinyl variant, but it was limited, so it's gone. But I'm just as happy to have the black vinyl. And look at that. It's almost exactly the same, except for the crown that says Jackpot. Really beautiful attention to detail. I love that. They also come in polyline sleeves. They're also pressed extremely well. This is something that I remarked on before, and I'll say it again. My Sweet Vinyl Sugar Cube is in the shop, so it went for an update. So normally I have that, and I use it on vintage records and stuff. But sometimes I have it on all the time, except if I'm doing a sound comparison. And of course, I'm used to flawless playback with the Sweet Vinyl Sugar Cube. But playing these records without it, it was like I had it in the system. These are pressed just as well as any decent audiophile record for $24.95. I'm not sure who presses them. I'm not sure who masters them. I'm pretty sure that there's a digital step involved. I don't care. I compared the sound of my original Quiet Village to this. I think the only thing about the original is it has a sense of nostalgia about it. There's something about playing it, even with a little bit of surface noise and everything. It brings you back to that, you know, tiki lounge or whatever. And but tonally, the records sound the same. And as far as clarity and detail, I think the Jackpot wins on that count. But it does it in the most natural way. It really sounds like an improved version of the original in some ways. I know there are people who say, oh no, the old analog version has warmth and bloom and everything. And, you know, trust me, I know what they're talking about. But in this case, if you want a clean version of this record and not giving up much in terms of the vintage sound and the natural quality, really nothing, the Jackpot reissues fit the bill. And, you know, this black vinyl version is almost like having an original. It's got the same aesthetic, the same feel. The difference is, of course, these are tip-on jackets, but these, you know, are $24.95 and they're beautiful. What about the music on this? I came to this first. So this was my first exposure to Martin Denny. It's probably the first one I found in a thrift shop. A different copy, though. And it has the things that we think about when we think about Exotica and Martin Denny. The pseudo-Oriental or Polynesian kind of melodies, exotic instrumentation, but some standard instruments as well, like xylophone and marimba and things like that. But, you know, the wind chimes, the bird calls, and things like that are all on this record. And each melody is kind of like, might feel like it's somewhere in the Middle East or the Far East or some island or some jungle or Hawaii or something. It has that kind of feeling, like melodies and motifs derived from that kind of setting, or what you might imagine that setting to be, sort of a Hollywood version of that setting. Still, it's inventive. It's very fascinating in how they arrange the material. And the range of instruments is quite interesting. On this one, there is celeste, piano, bongos, congas, bird calls, vibes, marimbas, percussion, assorted percussion, string bass, marambula, more percussion from two different percussionists, and string bass. So fairly straightforward with some interesting percussion instruments. By the way, the man famous for the bird calls is August Cullen, and he does a wonderful job with that. Sometimes you feel like, okay, the novelty is wearing off for me, but these are the kind of records you dip into once in a while when you're just in the mood to escape. People play these in the background, but you know, also these came around the time of the hi-fi renaissance. So hi-fi was established in the mid-50s. By the time this came out in 59, people were starting to get into stereo. Tube equipment was, of course, the rule of the day. And audiophiles of that time period wanted records that exploited stereo or the hi-fi aspect, and Martin Denny's records did that beautifully. The interesting percussion always would tickle your ear. You know, gongs and like wind chimes and things were interesting to try to reproduce properly. So this record appealed to not only the men in their hi-fi dens, but, you know, the ladies like this as well. They enjoyed it when they were socializing with friends in their party rooms and stuff like that. That's how I remember this music when I was a child. The next album, and these are both stereo. It came out in mono as well. All these did. but the stereo ones are probably the ones you want. I mean, it's like a perfect reproduction, except for here where you see Liberty. Instead, you see, well, actually, you don't even see Jackpot here. They actually use the Liberty logo. Wow. Okay. It's very close. Very close. It's, wow. On the back, you have a different catalog number. That's one difference here. LST 7122 on the original and JPR 065 on the reissue. Overall, this is a fun record, traditional Martin Denny. So let's get to Primitiva. This actually came earlier, but I thought, after listening to it, I thought, oh, this has got to be later because he's really experimenting here. Look at this cover. I mean, she looks lovely on here, but also it's just the color. The color is beautiful. Her skin tone is great. Her expression is great. The sense of being in the tropics somewhere. Of course, the title written in that type, Primitiva. This whole era and this whole genre suggests taboo things and primitive things and jungle type stuff. The exotic sounds of Martin Denny. He became known as that. That was the name of the group. The exotic sounds of Martin Denny. What a classic cover this is. And I love the Jackpot stereo here. That stereo logo is original. They've just put their Jackpot crown there, and it looks great. Unbelievable. This one has color vinyl, and it's really pretty. If you see this. I don't know what they call it, but it looks beautiful playing on your system. Yeah, very, very pretty. It's not solid blue. It's got a little wisp in it. It's probably like, oh, actually, I have the name of it. What is it here? Lagoon Blue. Perfect. Lagoon Blue vinyl. So what's the music like on this? It's actually, some cuts are traditional Martin Denny with the bird calls and, the quasi-oriental exotic rhythms, sometimes a feeling of being in the jungle. But there's also little hints of jazz in here, and also some pretty adventurous rhythmic experiments on different instruments. Here, there is a piano, Celeste, vibes, marimba, percussion, bird calls, percussion, bongos, congas, string bass, marambula. And then they have guest artists on percussion, koto, mallets, and percussion. And some of the percussion employed are Japanese koto and prayer bells, African thumpiano, tuned chromatic bamboo, marambula from the West Indies, primitive log from New Guinea, Burmese gongs and cymbals, which are used really nicely in this, Japanese glass chimes, bamboo chimes, console concert marimba for 4 hands, a tuned steel drum, kuzan, and numerous other unique and unusual instruments. Well, they go to town on these instruments. And there's a couple of cuts where the bird calls are happening where, August is going to town too. It gets to be like you're in the middle of a jungle with all these bird calls and wind chimes happening and, and these tribal rhythms on the drums and then the gongs. And I love this one. This one is so much fun. Really fun. You can tell they're extremely talented. It doesn't go by the book. It definitely pushes it further. And that's what I love about Martin Denny records. At first glance, you feel like, okay, I've got one Martin Denny record. I'm good, But really, each one is different. And I've collected all of these, and I find each one to be fascinating in its own right. If you have never tried a Martin Denny record, you should try one of these Jackpot reissues. I mean, I guess people would probably start with Exotica. It has the famous cover. I didn't have it here. That's one that I don't have in a reissue yet. But you know, it's the one with the bead curtain, and she's like coming out with her face all beautiful with jewel in her forehead. Oh God, Sandy, I love you. Um, that's the iconic one. That's the one that sold boatloads of copies. That's the one with the most important cut, called Quiet Village. The fact that this other record here is called Quiet Village, it's not the one with the original cut that was a single and became a massive hit. So I would start with Exotica, but any entry point is good. I would say Latin Village would be a later entry point. Primitiva is highly recommended. All of them, really. I love these Jackpot reissues. They're usually $24.95. You can sometimes find them for less on Amazon, and they're well worth seeking out. Let me know what you think about Exotica. Are you into it like I am? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, I'm Scott for the Pressing Matters. Have a great day.